On the 5th of June 1965, this Dalek prop trundled onto our TV screens, and very quickly threw itself back off of them. But this Dalek was unlike any of the props seen before on the TV serial of Doctor Who. This is a brief history of Dalek prop number 7. To understand how Dalek 7 came about, it is necessary to have an understanding of the previous props. In late 1963, Shawcraft models were approached by the BBC and asked to construct 4 brand new Dalek props for filming of the Daleks. The props were mainly made of fiberglass and were finished to a very high quality. Despite this quality, each prop has unique features that allow it to be identified, such as different bolt placements or a variation in the size of various parts. These 4 Daleks were used for filming from November to December of 1963. When Dalek Mania took hold in 1964, and there was a demand for another Dalek story, it was decided that Terry Nation should write a sequel to the Daleks. The working title for this episode was The Invaders, and the script involved an invasion force of Daleks trying to take over the Earth and blow out its core. This story would go on to be known as the Dalek Invasion of Earth. For the production of this serial, 2 more Dalek props were commissioned by the BBC to bulk out the ranks of the Daleks. These new props are relatively similar to the original 4 Dalek props made, and use similar construction methods. All of the Dalek props in this story also had the same design changes made to them. Firstly, they got larger fenders in order to cover up the large wheels which helped the props navigate bumpier terrain. This was important for the location filming for the serial. Also, the Daleks had large discs on their back, which is intended to supply the Daleks with power. For filming of subsequent stories, these changes would be undone. In December of 1964, pre-production began on a new Doctor Who Dalek extravaganza, Doctor Who and the Daleks. This was to be a feature film with Peter Cushing in the lead role. Of course, this film required Daleks, and it required a lot of them. 8 props were needed, and the producers of the film decided to ask Shawcraft to make the props, as they had made them for the TV show. Each of these props cost approximately £350, and they were made over the course of a month. These props had a number of notable differences to their TV Dalek counterparts. Most notably, they were much more brightly coloured, and they had large fenders of the Dalek Invasion of Earth Daleks. They also had larger dome lights. As well as these more noticeable differences, there were a few more discrete variations. Firstly, they had different shaped gun boxes, with a flat top. This means that they have a trapezoidal side profile instead of a square side profile of the TV Daleks. Also, the angle of bevel on the neck rings was much steeper than the TV Daleks. These differences happened because in January 1965, Shawcraft changed the way that they made their Daleks. They refined their technique to make the construction of the Daleks more efficient, thus resulting in these differences. So this means that any Dalek props made by Shawcraft after January 1965 would have had these basic movie characteristics. For filming of the new Dalek serial, titled The Chase, the BBC only had access to 4 of the existing Dalek props, as 2 of the props had been given to Dr. Barnardo's. On the 9th of April 1965, production began on The Chase, at Camber Sands. Lots of footage was filmed that day, including some pyrotechnic shots, establishing shots, and an attempt at the cliffhanger for episode 1, where a Dalek emerges from the sand. It was decided that for these sequences, a new prop would be constructed by Shawcraft, and it was commissioned and built in early 1965, ready for shooting at Camber Sands in April. This prop cost the BBC £130. This prop was designed to be lightweight in order to be walked across the sand, because the caster wheels usually used wouldn't be able to operate on the sand. It also lacked some of the internal controls of the other Dalek props. This was to cut down on the weight. This prop is now known as Dalek 7. For filming at Camber Sands, the brand new prop was buried under the sand, and when the cameras were rolling, the crew attempted to pull it out of the sand with a land driver to get the effect of it emerging from the sand. However, this was done with little success, as the weight of the sand meant that the prop could not be pulled out. The crew had to abandon this shot, and it was instead filmed with a miniature Dalek later on. Dalek 7 is very different to its other TV Dalek counterparts, and this is because it was made by Shawcraft after January 1965, and therefore uses the refined production methods for the movie Daleks, such as the flat top shoulders and steep bevel on the neck rings. Due to Dalek 7 sharing these elements with movie Daleks, it has often been mistaken for a converted movie Dalek. However, this cannot be the case, as filming for The Chase started on the 9th of April 1965, at the same time that filming for Doctor Who and the Daleks was taking place. Dalek 7 took quite a beating during The Chase, as it was intended to be used as a stunt prop. In episode 3 it runs off the side of the Mary Celeste, and in episode 4 it is thrown to the ground by Frankenstein's monster. Whilst Dalek 7 was built to be lightweight, the prop would still have been immensely heavy, so the fact that John Maxim, who played Frankenstein's monster, was able to lift it above his head and slam it to the floor is amazing. Unfortunately, when it hits the floor, the back of the fender section is broken off and damaged. Also, the head and neck rings of the prop fall off. The director thought this looked cheap and thinks it would be nice to have some sort of Dalek internals inside the prop. But Dalek 7's history does not end there. In 1965, the Dalek was mounted at the front of a van for Southall Carnival. Interestingly, here it has the larger fender base as seen on the Dalek Invasion of Earth Daleks, but this was later removed. Later, the prop would be fitted with all the necessary internals to be a fully operational Dalek prop, and it would be used in most of the subsequent Dalek stories in the classic series of Doctor Who, including The Power of the Daleks, Genesis of the Daleks, and Resurrection of the Daleks. In these stories, it was even used as a hero prop. Dalek 7 also made a number of appearances outside the show, attending a number of publicity events and photo calls. The last appearance that Dalek 7 would make in Doctor Who was in Remembrance of the Daleks, in which the shoulder section was used to construct one of the Renegade Dalek props. In 2011, the prop then appeared for sale on 4 rooms. Most of the other parts of this prop at the time are no longer the original 60s parts. Nevertheless, Dalek 7 had a very interesting history, starting off as a stunt prop and then becoming one of the main props used through the production of the classic series of Doctor Who.